You're listening to The Dating Den with dating and relationship badass and best-selling author Marni Battista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important dating, sex, and relationship issues you want to know about. So if you're ready for true talk that's authentic and unfiltered, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
The Dating Den with Misa Hopkins. How emotional wisdom can help you tap into your intuition.
Ladies, welcome into the Dating Den. I'm excited for you. I have Misa Hopkins here in the den. She has been a pioneer in the field of feminine consciousness for over 20 years. She's a 5 times best-selling author. She's made a ton of television appearances. She's going to be in the soon-to-be-released documentary called The Spark, which I'm excited to hear about that. She has these ability to have these powerful mystical initiations in both feminine and masculine sacred energies, and those inspire her to further personal and planetary healing through balanced consciousness. I'm so excited to talk about all this stuff. And she walks the talk because she's been married for 17 years to the love of her life. So we always want to listen to someone who's doing it well. I'm so happy that you're here.
I'm so excited to be here, Marni.
This is going to be so fun. So let's just start at the beginning. What is emotional wisdom, and how does it connect to our ability to have healthy relationships, intimate relationships especially?
All right. Well, Marni, I know this to be emotional wisdom is really anchored in sacred feminine consciousness. And we as women go through cycles in our lives where we know our emotions get pretty intense, right? Starting with, the first time that we bleed.
Yeah.
Our emotions get really intense. They do it again at menopause. I mean, they do it when we're pregnant. They do it post-pregnancy. Our emotions are powerful energy for us. And I think for centuries, not centuries, we could go back thousands of years, women have really been taught that emotions are an annoyance, they're a problem, they're to be basically suppressed or ignored, right? We've all heard this stuff. But what I know to be true is that emotions are telling us something. There is wisdom in those emotions. And the way that my ancestors taught me is that emotions are doorways to your awakening. And that awakening comes through your intuition.
Well, let's back it up, because that's like emotions is our gateway to your wisdom. Say more about that. Why and how does that work?
So emotions are telling you something. They are telling you that there is a deeper need that longs to be met. So if you're angry, it means some part of you has not been heard, seen, witnessed, understood yet. If you're sad, same thing. If you're happy, some part of you a need is getting met, and that happiness is telling you, oh, this is how I want to live my life. Or as I talk about with my women, when you're becoming a woman of your choosing. So your emotions are giving you an opportunity to say, what, especially the difficult ones, what emotional need is longing to be met that is behind the anger or behind the sorrow that we're carrying. And when you get to that need, now you're able to nurture something profound in you. And that's when your life starts becoming a reflection of what you are actually choosing. And you are no longer a victim to experiences from your past.
So there's 2 things that just pop into my little brain here. One is, when we are sort of trained as women that our emotions are not an asset, they're more of like a pain in the ass, right? They get in our way. We get shamed for them sometimes. And so we don't want to have them, or we don't even have the ability to name them or notice them for a lot of reasons. How can we start to welcome them and see them as a window that is going to shine light on our truth?
Ooh, great question. Marni, what I find is that it's about recognizing all of your emotions as valid and
Mm,
significant. All of them. We tend to put them in camps, right?
right.
If I'm happy and I'm blissful and I'm feeling great, that's good. That's where I need to be. And the other stuff I just basically need to ignore. But we know what happens if we ignore them. We start becoming depressed. We become passive aggressive. We get into relationships we don't want to be in, right? Because they're trying to tell us, I want to feel something and I haven't gotten to feel it yet. So when you see those quote negative emotions, as helpmates, your world changes completely. They are the part of you, those difficult emotions are the part of you that, say, for example, I'll use my own life as an example. I was sexually abused when I was little tiny thing, 4 or 5 years old.
Mm,
So there was a part of me then that wanted to be respected, wanted to be precious instead of used.
yeah.
I wanted to be precious. So when I was seriously depressed and suicidal, the part of me that was trying to get my attention was the part of me that wanted to feel special and precious. And I had built up these protective walls and mechanisms to try to keep that precious one inside me safe.
Yeah.
Some point they stop working and they backfire. They aren't protecting you anymore. The way that I could be indignant, the way that I could be angry, the way that I could push people away from me, the way that I could just be in such a deep depression I didn't want to be around people. That was pushing away everything that I wanted.
Mm,
But I was trying to protect what was precious inside me from getting hurt again. So when I sat with those emotions as my friends rather than my enemy, they began to show me that I wanted to feel precious and special. And when I gave into that and said, okay, little one, here's what we're going to do in the inner worlds, by the way, and that's another conversation we should
yeah.
have.
Yeah. For sure.
It's different than the outer worlds. We try to do it in the outer worlds and it usually doesn't work. In the deep inner worlds, when I would go in and let her feel special and precious in the way that she wanted it then, it was repaired, you might say. Finally, that need got met. And I wasn't looking for men in my life to make me feel special and precious.
Mm, that's exactly it. I mean, if I was gonna like, first of all, you're so courageous, right? Like, it takes so much courage to do that work. And I think that's what is so amazing about us as women and the women that listen to this show is like, it's where we talk about it, like, oh, you just need to feel your feelings, right? Misa, we're like, you just need, like you just need to take an Advil, and it's not like that. It's right. It takes a lot of courage to say, okay, I'm having all these external symptoms. I'm depressed. I'm isolating. I'm pushing people away, and to say, shit, I have to open that can of worms, so to speak, and go tend to this part of me that I've been working really hard to repress or to ignore or whatever. And so I just want to honor your courage, because from that courage, you're making such a huge impact, which is amazing. And for everyone who's listening, we talk about courage on the show all the time. And I think it's about, being able to find that safety and to trust this process that because I'm telling you this, Misa's you guys have heard this from so many really brilliant leaders on this show. Like, and I know it takes a lot of courage. So I just want to tell you, if you're listening, you're like, that's me. She sounds like me. I feel the same way. Like, you're not alone, number one. And number two, like, we know you got it in you to be courageous. So I just wanted to honor you for that and for sharing your story, because I think so many women are like, oh my God, me too. So tell me, so then when you look at tending to the needs of that part of us that was wounded and being present to those feelings, how does that then open that window? We are able to tend to that part of ourselves. How does that connect us to our wisdom or our truth or our intuition?
Yeah, great question. Great question. I want to offer kind of an example of how we can get to that place inside of us safely.
I love
Safe.
it. That's awesome.
Okay. Then we'll talk about how the transformation happens. One of the things I like to share with the women I work with is to think about how we respond to children when they're really wounded. And by the way, wounds don't always have to be as deep as sexual abuse. Wounds could be both my parents were working and I just didn't get the time and attention that I needed. Or my father's version of love was giving gifts, but my version of love was, would you spend time with me?
Yeah.
Right? That creates a wound. So it's not always something as heavy duty as sexual abuse, though it can be. And as in my case, it was repressed, and that makes it harder to get to, right? So the only thing I had was my depression because I didn't have a memory of what had happened. So what we tend to do is think, oh, I have to relive all the pain. Not true. It is not true. Not in my experience, not in the experience of the women that I've been able to help. Just simply not necessary. However, if you think of that pain as a wound like a little child has that needs to be healed, we start kicking in our own motherly instincts for ourselves. So think about a kid who, you got a little guy, he just climbed up the tree. He was on too high a branch. He didn't have a good foothold and he fell and he really scraped up his leg and his elbow. He comes in and into the house. He's looking, usually they're looking for mom when they're real little, right? Or dad. They're looking for compassion. The first thing they want. They aren't ready for a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And they want you to tell them what they did wrong. They want compassion. They're looking for a hug.
Yeah.
They're looking for a hug. So when your anger is up, when your sorrow is up, you're looking for a hug. You need compassion because that's the sign that you've been wounded. So the first thing is to go in with as much love, and if you can't access love, as much presence as you can, because presence is also a doorway to compassion. So first, love. Second, okay, let's get this bandaged up. Let's get this tended to physically. That comes after the compassion. Now you're going to start to see what you need to do in your life for change to occur, for this to really heal. The third is now you can have a conversation with your little guy about what do you need to do differently so you don't fall off the tree again, right? How do you protect yourself? But you protect yourself by taking care of yourself, not defending.
That's such a huge point, right? Because if we reverse engineer this to the first point you made, right, about how we are sort of trained to not have emotions, what I hear women doing is the opposite, right? They're hurt and they have feelings, and instead of being compassionate and tending to it, they're like, oh, why, I should know better than this. He's a jerk. Why is my heart broken? Like, why did I right? And so this is that moment where you do something differently. I'm just underlining that so people know the exact moment that you got to polish up.
That's right. Because if you're blaming him or her, if your partner is female, you haven't changed anything. It's just an explosion of your anger going outward instead of inward. Depression is that anger going into you. So if you haven't been present to that feeling with compassion, and it's the compassion, Marni, that makes it safe.
Mm-hmm.
More compassion than anger. And if you stay present to that concept, eventually that's what happens. I tell my students, your terrible feelings become like a little pebble inside of a hand of compassion. Your compassion is so vast. Now, the one who was wounded originally when you were little, and the more you don't know the roots of it, the younger you were, by the way. If you can't remember the roots of where that anger or depression came from, you were really, really young.
Yeah.
So now that one is finally heard and seen in the presence of your compassion. And they will show you things in your meditations, in your quiet moments, in your inner world reflections. You'll start to see the parts of you that always longed for that love and attention. And that's what makes it safe. If you think of it, your anger, your depression, your sorrow, as an indicator about where the wound is, that makes it safe to go in and rescue the little one inside with the very love that she always needed.
I love this so much. And I think it goes so deep. And it's also like if you take it to the level of just being practical, right? Like I hear so many women, a great example. I was working with someone and she was dating someone for, let's say, 6 weeks. So not a short time, but not, 6 years. And he was a high quality dude. And so, after 6 weeks, she felt like something had shifted. And he was like, I just have so much stuff going on in my life. And I like you. And I realize I just am actually not ready to be in a relationship. And there was a lot of old patterning around like, why is this always happening to me? Right? Like so much of that energy. And I want to use that as an example here because when we get stuck in the story of that guy, like I've known this human 6 weeks, my whole life, right? Like, why do I want to spend all the energy on that person? What if I just look at the feeling like Misa's talking about and I go, okay, let's just let go of the story because that's a guy I've known for 6 weeks. That's dating, right? Like, okay, who's next, right? We're sad. What is it really, what's that window, right? Like what's really going on? Where were you hurt? Where were you abandoned? Where were you rejected? How can I really actually meet my own need here? And that's like the most self-loving thing you can do because ladies, the dude is like 6 weeks, 8 weeks. For some of you, it's a guy you were texting with and he said he was going to ask you out and then you never heard from him again. Right? Like it's so much more self-honoring to do this work that you're talking about and really love ourselves through that sadness or that emotion to get to the other side. So I think this is so brilliant and just it's practical as well.
Right. Because when you give yourself what you always needed, you're a different person. You're coming into relationship more whole. And the reflection of the people, the potential partner that comes into your life is also more whole. It's when we map our yang energy onto men, right? And we look for them to be the intuitive person in our lives when we were young, know what we want, be that person that we want them to be, that we strip them of who they are. They don't get to be the person they are because we're trying to get them to be the person we want them to be. And I've done it, by the way. Oh my God, so many times, so many relationships and a lot longer in than a few weeks.
Yeah.
Years in, I was still expecting them to be the person I wanted them to be. And that's because I wasn't being the person I wanted to be.
I love this. I'm just smiling over here if you guys could see me, but you can't. So I'll just tell you because I wrote this whole essay. My hobby is writing. I wrote this whole essay about how my kids left the empty nest. They left the nest. And then I decided to raise my husband after however many years, 13 years. I was like, you know what? I want him to change. And it was exactly that, right? Like I wanted him to be who I wanted him to be because I didn't want to deal with my sadness, my loss, my fear. So I just started trying to control him, like, on hyperspeed. And I'm just saying that because it's so easy to default into that. Right? Like, because of that internal piece. And it's like, okay, wait. So it was really amazing to be able to do the work, reflect on it through journaling, and then ultimately write about it, which was really healing for me. So I think that whatever level you are whether you're in a relationship, whether you're dating, it's relevant and applicable. It's stuff that is always going to show us what we need to learn. So let's talk about wisdom because I want to make sure we have first of all, we got to have you back because we could talk for hours. But let's talk about wisdom because I want to make sure we get into this, how do we use these sacred feminine practices and things like that?
Yeah. So this is the cool thing. When you hold that discomfort, again, focused on compassion. So you can do it. That's where the courage comes from.
Yeah.
That you have that kind of compassion in you. Now you get to do it for yourself. And you've allowed the fears and the doubts to come up. Nobody's going to love me. Nobody wants me. I'm going to keep getting these yucky people in my life, whatever that fear is. You hold it. You love it. What part of me is aching? You hold it. You love it. Eventually, those voices quiet down. They get really quiet. They just don't exist and they don't have power anymore. And what arises is the quality that you want in a partner and in you. And the key piece being you want it in you. And now your compassionate love holds how you're going to feel and how you are feeling in this moment with your perfect partner.
Mm.
Your yang and your yin energy are in balance. When your yin energy, your emotions are in that much pain, you're not going to attract the kind of yang or male energy, and that can again be in a partner who's a woman or a man, that is going to be right for you. You won't. You've got to be in your center of balance. And that becomes this awareness of, oh, this energy of self-reliance is me. I'm that. And whoa, who am I going to attract with that? So I want to give you a real life example.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So I had been in a relationship, Marni, with a man who was powerful in the spiritual realms. We both did most of our work in the spiritual realms, incredibly powerful, and protected me there. And I kept saying to myself, when our relationship was complete, I had to have a man who could protect me. That was just fundamental in my brain. So I met this wonderful man. He is just almost everything I've been looking for, right? Except he doesn't protect me.
Mm.
Not the way I'm thinking he needs to. In other words, my spiritual equal, right?
Yeah.
And I'm remembering something my elder taught me early on. And she said, Misa, and you have to remember, she was Native American, Cherokee.
Amazing.
She's saying, I don't get women today. She says, what's this equal stuff? And I'm listening because that's what I'm looking for, right? So I know, teaching for me here.
Yeah.
And she says, here's the deal. In the way that I was raised, she said, you're not looking for someone who is as deep in your spiritual practice as you are. That's what you do. And she said, you want balance. You want a partner who is going to take care of the physical things. And something clicked. And she said, think about it. When you're getting ready to go into deep ceremonial space, she said, you're already going there a day or two ahead of time, aren't you? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, then you need somebody who is going to pack the bags and drive the car and make sure you have food and a place to sleep to go do your ceremonies, don't you? And I went, oh my God, she's right. That is what I need. So when my Jeffrey came into my life, and I'm looking at this man who is that, he's physical, he's funny, I can be very serious, he's really funny, he's this beautiful compliment to me. Smart, really smart, loves me, would do anything for me. And as my previous partner said, Misa, he would take a bullet for you, but he will not protect you in the way that I used to. So what are you going to do? And I said to myself, then I need to find that in me.
Mm-hmm.
And so into meditation I went to find out what that meant to be someone who protected myself spiritually, and discovered a whole new aspect of myself that I didn't know existed, that had wanted to exist. Let's go all the way back now to my sexual abuse. What was I not able to do? Protect myself. First, I needed to learn how to protect myself. And of course, my path was going to get me there. And my path was going to attract Jeffrey into my life. So I would do my work. I would go in and find it in me. And then he became the man that I married.
Oh my God. Okay, first of all, that was amazing. I have to send you my essay. I think we're married to a version of the same guy. We're soul sisters. And what's really, just circles back to what you said at the beginning. So my trauma was that my dad was working all the time. Right. So I'm just like that flip side, right? Like my trauma wasn't sexual abuse, and also it had the same sort of impact, right? But it was just that I'm not important, I'm not enough. If I was enough, you would be there for me, et cetera, et cetera. And I just think it's so fascinating because I was married to the guy also who did the protecting in a certain way that really didn't meet my need. And then my husband now is totally exactly that person as you described of your husband. And I think it's just so beautiful. And that's And that's really the trusting the process, right? Of like looking at if you see the pain and you just follow the scent of the pain and you do this work, that, oh my gosh, you end up with something that you could have never even imagined because and I love this and I want to make sure we hit this next, is it's like beyond your wildest dreams, meaning it's in this other realm.
Yes. It's what you can't know to ask for or look for. It's so deep in your psyche. It's so buried. It's not on the forefront of your thoughts, but you're creating it. You're calling it in.
And so how do you get out of so this is what everyone's like, okay, so if I don't know and it's very deep in my psyche, how do I get out of my own way?
Yeah. And that's the beautiful piece. And that's where that deep work, when you go in and hold your frustration and hold your doubts, hold it in love, it unravels itself truly. And I've seen this to a point, Marni, where I took a lifelong issue that I had, took it into this, what I call holding as being in compassion with what is without judgment, without trying to fix it.
Yeah.
Just present to what is. That this lifelong issue I had 30 days later, I couldn't even remember what the issue was.
Wow. It's so powerful, right? You could probably push that issue away for how many years?
Yeah. And it was. I was pushing away people in my life, beautiful men in my life, because I was expecting them to be what I needed to be for myself. And still to this day in our relationship, Jeffrey and I will take a look at that periodically and say, wait a minute, that's not who I am. And that's an opportunity for us to each get still in our own way. Often for him, it's a walk. Often for me, it's meditation, and say, wait a minute, who am I? And what do I need to develop in myself next? What is my partner creating for me?
This is so great. Also, I just want to point this out, ladies. So just that little example, for you, it's meditation. For him, it's going for a walk. I hear so many women, they're like, they want a male version of themselves, right? Like he's got to be into healing, personal development. It has to look like me. He has to eat like me. He has to go to yoga like me. He has to meditate like me. And what I hear you saying is that when you find your complement, their way of going into themselves and being who they need to be might not look like yours at all.
That's right. Because if you're expecting him to be a copy of you, you just mapped your yang energy, your own male energy, your action-oriented energy onto somebody else. And you didn't claim it for yourself.
Damn. I have this training and I say, guys don't want to kiss a dude in a skirt.
That's right.
But that's just a little more crass way of saying what you said way more beautifully than I do. So I find
that's perfect. That is it. And here's the deal. You are not going to stretch with a duplicate of yourself. Where is the growth in that? Where's the fun?
So true.
It's not as much fun, truthfully. It's kind of dull. It's kind of redundant. But why not be with a man who stretches you, who gets you to try things you haven't done? And by the way, men's very often, their way of getting connected to spirit is not the way we do it as women. They are not going to sit and talk about their emotions. They are not as excited about getting into a circle and spending hours talking about what's going on. No. They're more inclined to pick up a fishing rod and go fishing. And let me tell you, even if they aren't interested in catching any fish, you stand in the middle of a stream for an hour or two, you're in altered space.
100%. Yeah, no, totally. My husband likes to surf or do adventure things or just be out in nature.
Yeah, they may have a more active way of doing it. They can get to their quiet moments for sure. In the same way you can get to your active moments, right? And depending upon how you're built, you're going to have some interesting mix of sacred masculine, feminine energy together. And that's going to be perfect for you. So I think when we meet new people in our lives, one of the questions I like to ask is, why is it that the universe sent you out of all the people? What is it that we are here to learn and give to each other in this moment, just this moment? There may not be another moment, just over this cup of coffee. Who are you? And if it's a beautiful relationship, and that can include a business relationship, by the way, because I've done it.
Yeah.
I just, like we did, I met a soul sister. Whoa, who knew? I didn't know you were out there. And here you are, or a soul brother.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And if it's just not right, if it just really doesn't sync up, what an opportunity to bless someone else in their journey, to bless them, to say, oh my God, I learned so much about me because of you. Even when you were being an asshole, I learned so much about me. Thank you. And I love you. Bless you in your journey as you're discovering what you need to. I hope I left you a little something too. And then direct your thoughts back to where you were in those deeper, quieter moments. Ask yourself, how will I feel when I'm with the partner I'm going to be better suited for? When they for me, how am I going to feel? And start feeling those things, because the minute you start feeling them and let yourself feel them, and I know this one really well because I used to do some serious codependent attachment to men, you stop thinking about them all the time. And all you've done is bless their journey. You've done nothing to hurt them. From there on out, you're stopping. If there was any arguing, it stops. You bless them, you love them on their way. That's what I did with my previous partner. We're still good friends, really good friends. Love you dearly. Not gonna live with you, honey. And now I get to focus on how I feel at my best in my relationship with my partner and bring that best to him and to any person that I meet. How will I feel when? And feel it now. Because that is the energy that draws them in.
And that's so important, ladies. We call it bless and release, when somebody's not a match, right? Like we want to release them from our headspace, and so I think this is so brilliant, because then you stay in that high level of energy when you can bless and release and ask yourself those questions. What did I learn about me? And also, this sort of speaks to something that's a really high level principle, but you all are real smart. And so there is no such thing then as a waste of time, right? Like if all time is valuable and precious, and you went on that coffee date and, he didn't look like his photo or whatever it is, and you're like, oh, that was a total waste of time, right? It wasn't, right? I love what Misa's saying. So this person showed up for a reason, right? Yep. So what can you learn about you? And then how can you bless and release so that you can be in that high energy for next? So it's so important, because what if the guy right for you is like around the corner and you're so busy scowling as you leave that date, looking on your phone, and you miss it, right? Because you made it about whatever it is that is in that deeper part that's sad or mad or disappointed. And so, yeah, it's like we're just missing out on opportunities because we're not able to be in the energy of how do I want to feel when, which is tragic, right?
Yeah, it is. It is, because your energy is focused on what is not working. It's totally in the wrong place. You can't be aware of your partner, which is what you're speaking to. You can't be aware of that potential partner, and nor can you attract them when you're in that space. It's not possible.
Furrowed brow, not sexy. Okay, let me ask you this last question. So, what should you never do if you want to attract your partner? What's the number one thing you should never do, Misa?
Okay, you ready for this one?
I'm ready. I can't wait.
Never blame them for being who they are.
Say more.
Okay, so if your energy's all caught up in, well, he was an asshole. He was a waste of we were talking about waste of my time. Oh my God, I could never be with him, right? What you're doing is you're blaming them as not being good enough. And guess what men struggle with the most frequently, at least my observation in relationships and the women I coach? Not feeling good enough.
Yeah, totally.
So now what energy field have you just surrounded yourself in? They aren't good enough. And if you don't think a man can't smell that from miles away, oh, you're mistaken. They can. They can. And they are headed out the door because they don't want to feel like they're not good enough. Now, that doesn't mean that as you go deeper into relationship, that you aren't going to look for your partner to take responsibility for the pieces they need to be taking responsibility for. Of course they do. But that can be done without blame and without shaming someone else. If you don't want to be shamed, don't shame them.
I love this. So awesome. Jeremy is my husband. We went to this, they have this little museum of love in LA here. And it was so amazing. It was like little rooms, and there were like questions and activity. Anyway, I could tell at the beginning he was like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna have to talk about my feelings for 2 damn hours. Like, get me the hell out of here." But they had some really cool experiments and games. One of which, you put a little pulse oximeter on, and there, I guess science says, and maybe you know about this, I don't, but it said like if you look into your partner's eyes for more than 4 minutes, your heart rates will sync up. Mm-hmm. Isn't that cool? Anyway, we did that. It totally worked. But we did these. The Gottman Institute has these 4 horsemen, which I already knew about, but we did this little quiz, and it was really interesting. And we circled like how we show up sometimes when we're not our best selves in our relationship, and we are both critical of each other, right? Which makes perfect sense, right? Because we're both reflecting our own insecurities onto each other. And we were like, we don't want to do that because we really think each other is awesome. So what can we do so that we don't project, right, that blame, that criticism onto each other when we're in our own stressor environments or whatever it is? And I think when you look at it like that, and it's not that person's wrong because they do it, it's just a pattern. You're like, oh, shoot, let's look at that. It's so, when you have that mindset, because it's happening to show us something, it's so doable.
Oh my gosh, it is. And particularly if you're honest with each other, and often you may be the one leading that, right? Hey, listen, this is a button.
Yeah.
For me, this is a major thing I'm working on. Ask for what help looks like. Oh, I'm working on this. It would really help me if you can. And don't get upset with them when they can't, because they're not going to remember for a while.
Yeah.
But they will eventually. They enjoy being there for you. They often want to be there for you. They just don't know how. So when you tell them, here, be here for me in this way when I do this, that will really help. And what Jeffrey and I found, and we just went through a really rough patch, Marni. We went through probably 8 months of digging into some of our deepest, yuckiest, gunkiest stuff.
Well, after 17 years, you got to pull the refrigerator out from behind the wall and see.
That's it.
You're like, ew, gross. Okay, that's totally, and that's relationship. So what happened?
So what happened out of it as we got through the gunk and moved back into tenderness is that we can be playful with it.
Yes, Misa, so true.
Oh, and it just makes it so much better. And that's the stuff we're afraid of, right? When we're looking for a person in our lives, our partner, we're thinking, oh, God, they're going to see all my crap and they're going to hate me and blah, 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 blah. But the thing is that, and they're going to leave me, right? The biggest fear of all. But here's the deal. The really biggest fear is I'm going to die inside if they see me the way I am, right? That's the big fear. But here's the deal. They have the same stuff going on. So you're both coming to it with that same core fear. And when you create that safe place to get to show up and be who you are, then there's room to say, but what if we play with this? I'll give you a sweet little example here. My husband and I love to go out for drives and go to new places. And we had just gone to a place where we went for a lovely, lovely hike. And as we came out, there was this fire danger sign, right? There had just been a torrential rain the night before. And the fire danger sign said, high, extreme danger. I'm like,
you're like, what?
What? Does anybody ever come out and actually change these things?
Right.
Play with them, I don't know. And I had my theory about what happened, and he had his theory about what did or didn't happen. And we actually had an argument about it. And it was like, what the heck? And then we're coming home and talking about why are we having an argument? Well, this happened, I don't know, 20 times. Finally, it was like, we have got to get this nailed because this is ridiculous. What happened was we realized that we were arguing over things that were complete theories. We had no idea what was true or not.
Right. Just want to be right.
Just our opinions about things. And we started laughing. And we said, oh, so we're arguing about speculation.
Oh my God. That's
go for a
awesome.
drive. We'd see something and we'd start to get into this. And one of us would look at the other one and say, oh, let's speculate wildly about this.
Yeah.
And we'd laugh. And it was done. It was completely done. So that capacity, that willingness to hang in there with each other, to get to know each other, to find the humor that is there and the love that ultimately is always there. That's the undercurrent that's trying to come to the surface, right? Let it rise to the surface. And we can do that. We can do that with the first cup of coffee. You don't have to wait until you've been married 17 years, though it's going to happen if you've been married 17 years. But we can be present to what are the undercurrents. Let your emotional wisdom start working for you. If it just doesn't click and doesn't feel right, don't make it work. If it doesn't work for them, don't blame them. It just didn't work for them. And allow yourself to keep sinking into how am I going to feel when I'm with my partner? How am I going to feel? Cultivate that feeling in all sorts of ways in your life until you're sitting down having a cup of coffee or a virtual cup of coffee with somebody and you're like, wow, this is how I always wanted to feel. And then nurture that feeling and see where that takes you.
I love that. It's so amazing. I love to listen to stories of couples that have been together for a long time. My husband and I, we took this one program together. And so, eye rolling is like a form of contempt. And so our joke is that we look at each other and I go, I'm eye rolling, like we're laughing about it, right? Like, can you tell how ridiculous I think this is? Anyway, and we laugh. And so then the moment passes. So I love that playfulness. You're amazing. I hope I get to meet you one day in person and definitely have you back on the show. This is like a listen to multiple times episode, ladies. If I do say so myself, send it to your friends who are in a relationship or dating. We covered the gamut. You can find out more about Misa in the show notes and sacredfemininawakening.com. I am just honored to be in your presence and your wisdom. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Marni. It's wonderful to find a soul sister and be able to go so deep, and so wonderful to know that there are women out there really doing this deep, powerful work right now on the planet. What an amazing time to have these women really engaging deeply in their heart-centered energy and their emotional wisdom.
We're going to change the planet. I've been watching a lot of Marvel comic movies, and so I have visions of like we're all guardians of the galaxy.
Awesome.
Oh, ladies, whatever you do in your spaceship, do it with some damn dignity. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Battista, and let's talk soon.